Today, with the help of my trusted boat Frog, I'm going to explore the Upper Arun around the village of Pulborough. I'm currently about 7 miles north of Arundel, following a route which has been used for hundreds, if not thousands of years. But before continuing towards Pulborough, I want to stop off for a quick look around. Here, the river gently meanders through a large area of flat open wetland, and it's full of historical significance. I've come up here to the top of the bank to get a view over Pulborough Brooks, which is laid out over there in front of me. The area is now a nature reserve, but the discovery of Iron Age canoes and Roman ruins provides ample evidence of the river's long association with transport and trade. The Arun has been an important navigation since at least the 1600s, and was significantly improved with locks and wharves in the late 1700s, but more about that later. Pulborough was something of a ribbon development, running parallel to the river along Lower Street, which was the main east-west route across Sussex. The river has become extremely shallow here after an exceptionally dry period and full of weeds, making it difficult to use the electric motor. So I have to turn to the oars to help me get to the slipway. This is the old Swan Bridge, built in 1785. It's been an important crossing point of the river here since Roman times. Swan Bridge was built on the site where the London to Chichester Roman road, known as Stane Street, crossed the Arun. The bridge has become the focal point of Pulborough and features in many postcards from the early 20th century. This hand-coloured example from 1917 shows the picturesque view from Swan Bridge. The message, like the address, is clear and simple. Just to let you know I'm not dead, from Auntie Lucy. This view, upstream from Swan Bridge, taken in the 1930s, shows the grassy north bank, long since disappeared. Another hand-coloured card, posted in 1906, shows the main road, Lower Street, looking not much different from today. It was sent to Miss Elsie Dowick, the daughter of Henry. Henry Dowick was a local barge master, and the last to work out of Pulborough. This photograph, showing two of his sons, Percy and Tom, was taken in 1898 on the River Arun near Pulborough Brooks. Just over there, where the new bridge is, was where the old wharf was, where Dowick would have operated from. And beyond it, a little bit further up, would have been a sidearm leading to the Corn Exchange. The site is now occupied by modern housing, and all evidence of the Corn Exchange and wharf has disappeared. However, this photograph shows the wharf as it would have been during Dowick's time on the barges, where he would have delivered cargoes such as coal for fuel and chalk for the lime kilns. In the 18th and 19th centuries, lime was widely used in Sussex for agricultural and building purposes, and Pulborough's lime kilns were still very much in evidence during the early 1900s. Aside from his barge operation, Henry Dowick was well known in the village as a bell ringer at St Mary's Church. And his family continued to ring and maintain the bells for many years. Dowick remained here in Pulborough until his death in 1902, aged 55. Overlooking Pulborough Brooks, just over there, is Swift Cottage. This is where Henry Dowick spent the last few years of his life. He died here shortly after delivering his last cargo of coal to Gretton Wharf. When the current owners moved in, they discovered this. A disused well, now restored as a garden feature. At the bottom of the well were a number of artefacts, which included these, which are relics of Henry Dowick's barge life. They are the ends of boat hooks, perhaps dumped in the well by Dowick himself. Their distinctive fishtail design was commonly seen on Arun barges, such as Swanbourne, featured on this card from 1905. By the end of the 19th century, Arun barge traffic had been superseded by the railway, which came to Pulborough in 1859. The village expanded and soon became a holiday destination. The railway brought an influx of visitors, escaping from the hustle and bustle of city life. And the old river barges gave way to leisure boats as new businesses emerged. The Swan Hotel, no longer in existence, accommodated the visitors. It also boasted a garage to support the growing motor community and was an early entry in the Automobile Association handbook. The writer of this card was clearly impressed with the surroundings. I write on the balcony of the Swan, in the sunshine. It has turned out so beautifully fine, I decided to lunch here, although barely 12:30. Doesn't the river look tempting? Here we have what appears to be a leisure craft, with its crew carrying out some work, a familiar experience for any boat owner. Dear Mother, snapshot of me cleaning up launch Sunday morning, just above Pulborough Bridge. Will. Will was a sanitary engineer, and the card was posted in Brighton on July the 7th, 1907. The old wharf, next to Swan Bridge, has now been replaced by private housing, as has the Swan Hotel. Opposite the hotel was Cordon's chemist shop. Lewis Nicholas Cordon was the local chemist, druggist and stationer. He was also the local photographer, printing and selling postcards from his shop, many of which are featured in this film. In the 1930s, a new Pulborough Bridge was built to cope with increased road traffic. This rare aerial photograph, taken around 1936, shows the new bridge under construction. The construction work removed all traces of the old wharf, but at least the slipway reminds us of times gone by. Progressing upstream from Swan Bridge, we approach the imposing railway bridge on the edge of the village. And just past the railway bridge stood Clement's Bridge, providing access to the south bank of the river and featured on many postcards. It was completely washed away in September 1968 after frequent bouts of flood damage. But these buildings remain intact, including the old police house nearest the camera. Leaving Pulborough behind us, we return to the countryside as we wind our way up the Arun Valley. Just ahead on the left, the sound of the weir tells us that this is where the River Rother flows into the Arun. Now barely visible through the bushes, this was once a significant junction on the Arun navigation. And a short distance from the junction was Hardham Mill, with its lock and lock cottage. A rare interior photograph, taken just before closure in 1910, shows a Mr. Myram dressing a millstone. Just beyond Hardham Mill was another lock which led to the Arun Canal and the 1/4 mile long Hardham Tunnel. In the early 1800s, this new route had a towpath all along it, enabling barges to bypass Pulborough and avoid several hours of slow, tide-dependent progress, with low bridges restricting their cargo capacity. The canal rejoined the river at Coldwaltham Lock, just south of Greyton Bridge. Back en route, our story continues. Just over there, near Hardham Mill on the River Rother, was where Henry Dowick had a robbery from his barge. The robbers, thought to be gypsies, took bedding and clothing to the value of 5 or 6 shillings. After being caught, with help from the Constable of Fittleworth, the perpetrators were committed to the House of Correction for 7 days as vagrants. The final section of today's trip takes us through the grounds of Stopham Park, the ancestral home of the Bartelott family, one of the oldest in Sussex, going right back to the Norman conquest. The Bartelotts have lived at Stopham since 1379. We're now approaching the finest remaining example of a medieval bridge on the Arun, Stopham Bridge. A new crossing was built in 1986, but the ancient ironstone bridge with its 7 arches dates back to the 15th century. The bridge was built in 1420, but the central arch had to be raised in 1822 to enable loaded barges to make their way up to Pallingham Lock and to join the Wey and Arun Junction Canal. This view from 1905 shows how little Stopham Bridge has changed over the years. Pallingham Lock, however, became derelict and overgrown long ago. It once marked the end of the tidal navigation and the start of the Wey and Arun Canal, which, joining the River Wey some 20 miles to the north, enabled barges to reach the Thames at Weybridge and thus continue to the capital. It's pretty certain that our local barge master must have passed here at least once in his lifetime. We know from the 1861 census that at the age of 13, Henry Dowick was on board the Fox of Arundel at Putney-on-Thames, along with the master, Thomas Dowick, aged 61, and the mate, Charles, aged 21. The Fox must have passed here to get to the Thames on that occasion. The White Hart at Stopham is the only waterside pub on the Upper Arun. Not surprisingly, it has featured on many postcards since they first appeared in the 1900s. An early reference to the pub was in 1807, when it was trashed by a disgruntled group of thirsty Royal Lancashire militia, walking from Chichester to Horsham. Apparently, they weren't served quickly enough. I, on the other hand, have got plenty of time for a pint. Cheers!